In the year 5 CE, the Roman Empire stood at its zenith. Augustus, the first emperor, had transformed Rome from a war-torn republic into the greatest power the world had ever seen. But beneath the marble facades and triumphal arches, a crisis was brewing, one that would threaten everything Augustus had built. This is the story of the final years of Augustus's reign, a tale of death, betrayal, and political intrigue that would determine the fate of an empire. It's a story of how Rome's greatest ruler faced his most personal challenge, finding someone worthy to inherit his throne. By the time this crisis resolved, 2 heirs would be dead, 1 would be murdered, military mutinies would shake the empire's foundations, and a reluctant successor would ascend to power through a combination of luck, ruthlessness, and calculated patience. This is the story of how Augustus's dynasty nearly collapsed, and how Rome survived. For Augustus, succession had always been a nightmare. He had no sons of his own. His only biological child was Julia, and through her, he had pinned his hopes on his grandsons, Gaius and Lucius Caesar. These boys were everything Augustus wanted: young, charismatic, blessed with the Julian bloodline. He adopted them as his own sons and groomed them for power with meticulous care. The Senate showered them with honors, the people adored them, Rome's future seemed secure. But fate had other plans. In 2 CE, Lucius Caesar died suddenly in Massilia, modern-day Marseille. He was just 19 years old, the official cause, illness. But whispers of poison circulated through Rome's streets. Augustus was devastated, but he still had Gaius. The elder grandson was already proving himself in the East, conducting diplomatic missions and military campaigns. Surely Gaius would survive to inherit the throne. Then in 4 CE, disaster struck again. Gaius Caesar, wounded in Armenia, died of complications from his injuries. He was only 23. Augustus had lost both heirs within 2 years. The man who had conquered Egypt, defeated Antony, and brought peace to the Roman world found himself powerless against the cruelest enemy of all, death itself. The succession Augustus had carefully orchestrated for 2 decades lay in ruins, and he was 66 years old, his health failing, his time running out. Rome needed an heir immediately. Augustus turned to the one man he had always kept at arm's length, Tiberius Claudius Nero. Tiberius was Augustus's stepson, the son of his wife Livia from her first marriage. He was brilliant, experienced, and had proven himself one of Rome's greatest generals. But he was also dour, difficult, and worst of all, not of Julian blood. Augustus had humiliated Tiberius before. Years earlier, he had forced Tiberius to divorce his beloved wife so she could marry Agrippa instead. When Tiberius's own sons by his first wife died, Augustus showed little sympathy. The message was clear: Tiberius was useful, but he was not family. Yet now, with his grandsons dead, Augustus had no choice. In 4 CE, Augustus formally adopted Tiberius as his son, but he didn't stop there. In a move that revealed his deep ambivalence, Augustus also adopted his last surviving grandson, Agrippa Postumus, the younger brother of Gaius and Lucius. It seemed Augustus was hedging his bets. Tiberius would be the experienced administrator, Postumus would be the Julian heir. Between them, surely Rome would be safe, but Agrippa Postumus was nothing like his brothers. The ancient sources describe him as violent, brutish, and mentally unstable. Whether this was true or propaganda manufactured by Tiberius's supporters, we may never know. What we do know is that Postumus quickly became a liability. He clashed with Augustus, he offended the Senate, his behavior grew increasingly erratic. By 7 CE, Augustus could tolerate it no longer. Agrippa Postumus was exiled, first to Sorrento, then to the remote island of Planasia, under military guard. The last of the Julian heirs was effectively removed from succession. The path was clear for Tiberius, and Tiberius did not waste his opportunity. Over the next 6 years, Tiberius systematically consolidated power. He crushed the Pannonian revolt with brutal efficiency. He stabilized the Rhine frontier. He demonstrated time and again that he alone possessed the military genius and administrative skill Rome needed. By 13 CE, Augustus granted Tiberius nearly all of his own powers, imperium proconsulare and tribunicia potestas. In everything but name, Tiberius was already emperor. The transition seemed inevitable, orderly, controlled. Then Augustus died. On August 19, 14 CE, in the town of Nola, Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus drew his final breath. He was 76 years old and had ruled Rome for 44 years. According to the historian Suetonius, Augustus's last words were to his wife Livia, "Live mindful of our marriage and farewell." Then, with characteristic dramatic flair, he allegedly asked, "Have I played the part well?" His final statement was taken from Greek theatre. "If I have pleased you, kindly applaud as I exit life's stage." But there was no applause, only the cold machinery of succession grinding into motion. Tiberius moved with remarkable speed. Within hours, he had secured oaths of loyalty from the Senate, the Praetorian Guard, and every military commander. Any hesitation, any delay, could have invited chaos. Tiberius understood this perfectly. But loose ends remained. Agrippa Postumus, still alive on his island prison, represented a threat. He carried Julian blood. In desperate times, desperate senators might rally behind him. We don't know who gave the order. Tiberius always denied involvement, but shortly after Augustus's death, soldiers arrived on Planasia and executed the exiled prince. Julia the Younger, Augustus's granddaughter, also met a suspicious end around this time. The Julian bloodline was being systematically eliminated. Meanwhile, in Rome, Augustus received honors no Roman had ever achieved. His body was carried in a grand procession through the streets. The Senate voted him divine status. He became Divus Augustus, the divine Augustus. Temples would be built to him. Priests would make offerings in his name. Augustus, who had rejected the title of king, had become something greater, a god. Tiberius played his role perfectly, the grieving stepson, the dutiful successor, the man who never wanted power but accepted it for Rome's sake. In the capital, the transition appeared flawless, controlled, civilized. But far from Rome, in the military camps along the frontiers, soldiers who had served Augustus for decades were asking dangerous questions, and they wanted answers written in blood. The news of Augustus's death hit the legions like a thunderclap. These were men who had known no other emperor. They had fought for decades, far beyond the promised 16-year term of service. Their pay was meager, their discharge bonuses were constantly delayed, and now their patron, their connection to power, was gone. If there was ever a time to rebel, this was it. In Pannonia, 3 legions erupted in mutiny. The soldiers made their demands clear: shorter terms of service, better pay, an end to brutal punishments, and immediate discharge for veterans. When officers tried to restore order, the troops beat them, in some cases killing them outright. Tiberius dispatched his own son Drusus to handle the crisis. Drusus arrived with the Praetorian Guard and tried negotiation. The soldiers weren't interested. Then, on the night of September 26, 14 CE, something extraordinary happened. A lunar eclipse darkened the sky. The superstitious soldiers panicked. They believed the gods, angry at their mutiny, were withdrawing their favor. The eclipse was an omen, a cosmic warning. Drusus seized the moment. He told the troops that heaven itself condemned their rebellion. The soldiers, terrified, begged for forgiveness. The ringleaders were identified and executed. The mutiny collapsed. But on the Rhine frontier, the situation was far worse. The German legions, hardened by constant warfare, had also mutinied, but their revolt was more violent, more organized, and led by more capable men. Soldiers murdered centurions, throwing their bodies into the Rhine River. They plundered supply depots. Some even discussed marching on Rome itself. Germanicus, Augustus's great-nephew, and one of Rome's most beloved commanders, rushed to the scene, but even he struggled to control the fury. Germanicus tried everything. He made concessions, promising better pay, immediate discharges for veterans. When that failed, he resorted to theatre. He drew his sword and threatened to kill himself rather than witness Rome's legions in rebellion. His pregnant wife Agrippina and infant son, the future Emperor Caligula, were sent away from camp for their safety, shaming the soldiers. Still, the mutiny raged. Finally, Germanicus made a calculated decision. He identified the ringleaders and had them executed, not through official channels, but through mob violence. He allowed the loyal soldiers to turn on the mutineers, creating a bloodbath that purged the most radical elements. But that wasn't enough. The legions were still restless, still dangerous, so Germanicus gave them what soldiers always want, an enemy to fight. He launched an immediate campaign into Germania, a punitive expedition against the German tribes. The legions, channeling their aggression outward, crossed the Rhine with savage enthusiasm. Villages burned, tribes were slaughtered, the mutineers became conquerors once again. The crisis was over, the legions were back under control. Tiberius's reign would continue. The transition from Augustus to Tiberius succeeded, but barely. 2 military mutinies, 1 murdered prince, and countless dead soldiers marked the transfer of power. Augustus had spent his entire reign trying to make monarchy look like a republic. He had carefully crafted the illusion that Rome was still free, that the Senate still mattered, that the emperor was just the first citizen. But his death revealed the truth. Rome was an empire, held together by military force and political ruthlessness. The smooth succession Augustus had planned dissolved into chaos the moment he died. Tiberius would rule for 23 more years, but he never forgot how close the empire came to collapse in those first weeks. He never forgot that loyalty, even among Rome's finest legions, was conditional, temporary, bought with blood and gold. Augustus had transformed Rome, but he had also created a problem that would haunt Rome for centuries. What happens when the emperor dies? The answer, as Rome would learn again and again, was often written in fire and steel. If you want to dive deeper into the reign of Tiberius and discover how this reluctant emperor shaped Rome's future, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below. Do you think Tiberius orchestrated Agrippa Postumus's murder, or was it Augustus's final order? Let's debate in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Roman history, give this video a thumbs up. It helps us bring you more content like this. Until next time, remember, history isn't just about what happened, it's about understanding why it still matters today.